to ShowMeTheCurry.com. I'm Pickle and I'm still stuck in the house because of the self-quarantine. So I decided I was going to make some sauerkraut. Now, most of you have heard of sauerkraut or been exposed to it. For those who don't, it's basically cabbage that's been fermented. So super easy. There's only a couple of ingredients that you need, mainly cabbage and salt. Now, be sure you don't use iodized salt, but any other kind of sea salt, Himalayan salt will work. And I have a little bit of garlic also. Not too much, just a little bit. But that's it. That's all that's going to be required to make our sauerkraut. So you might be wondering, why do we need to make sauerkraut? Because it's available in the stores. I happen to buy this little jar of sauerkraut from the store, 50 ounces of sauerkraut, and that's probably how much one head of cabbage will yield. And guess how much I paid for that? Over $8. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel like I want to spend $8 for a head of cabbage, which this whole thing probably cost me under $2, because it's usually like 50 cents a pound. So that's reason number one, why. The next reason, why make sauerkraut at all? Well, sauerkraut is one of those fermented foods that is a probiotic. So when you consume it, it helps your gut biome, it helps digestion, it's just overall boosts immunity, it has a bunch of vitamin C. There's just a lot of good things that are there with sauerkraut. So let's get started with this process. So I have one head of cabbage here. You need a sharp knife. You need a sharp knife. Here we go. So first thing what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these top layers off. I'm going to get rid of these very tough pieces on the top. And once you have these leaves off, don't throw these away because we are going to be using these later and I'll show you how, but just kind of put them to the side. And now with the very sharp knife, just going to cut this in half. I'm going to try to cut all these pieces off and try to take that core out. Cut it off like that. And once your cabbage is ready for slicing or shredding, then it's important to have a scale. It always helps because this will tell you how much salt you need to add. The reason I didn't weigh the cabbage before I chopped it like this is I don't want the weight of the core to be in there. So I want the weight of the cabbage without the core so I get an accurate reading. I have approximately 3.5 pounds of cabbage. Now there's several different ways that we can prep this cabbage. If you have a really sharp knife and you want to use your knife skills, then you can use a sharp knife and just shred it. And that's simple enough. Gets you nice long shreds. If you're not too thrilled with your kitchen knife or your knife skills, you can also use a food processor. Now when you use a food processor and you use a little grate, your end product is going to be a little finer than this. It's not going to be nice and shreddy like this. And some people like it like that. The other thing you can also use is if you have a mandolin. This also works. So I'm going to go ahead and shred up this cabbage and be right back. So that is all of our cabbage. And you might be wondering, how much salt do we need for this cabbage? Well, there's a simple formula. For every pound of cabbage you have, you need 10 grams of salt. So I had 3.5 pounds of cabbage. So 10 grams for 3.5 pounds per pound is going to be 35 grams of salt. And that's what this is, 35 grams of salt. And just to give you a reference on how much that is, it's 1.5 tablespoons. And I'm going to lightly sprinkle the salt a little bit over the top. I'm going to keep moving it around and sprinkling. And keep doing this till it's evenly salted. Now here comes the fun part. All we're going to do is we're going to mix that salt through. You can even get your kids involved. I know they're home and going stir crazy and this is a perfect thing for them to play with. Make sure they wash their hands. But we're going to squeeze the cabbage. Just make big fists of it and pretend like you're kneading dough and just massage that cabbage. It's kind of therapeutic. And after you do this a while, you'll see that the natural liquid, the moisture from the cabbage is going to start coming out. I'm going to take my one additional ingredient, which was the few garlic cloves that I had, just a little bit. And I'm gonna put that in there. And again, you can skip the garlic if you don't like garlic. All you need is cabbage and salt, but I like garlic. You can also add other spices like mustard seeds or caraway seeds, celery seed, some other kind of flavoring in there, but we're just gonna keep this kind of traditional and pure. So once again, I'm going to mix that garlic through in here. And after I mix it through really well, I'm gonna just leave this alone for about half an hour. And what that's gonna do is more of the liquid is gonna start coming out of the cabbage, and we're gonna go from there. So it's been about 30 minutes, and let's check on our cabbage. I'm still massaging as I go, but if you can see the liquid that's coming out, and that is perfect. That's how we want it. And I'm gonna continue massaging it just a little bit more. And now what I have is a clean jar that's been really nicely washed and it's completely dry. And I'm using a glass jar because it just works better for any kind of fermentation. You don't have any kind of reaction with plastics or with metal. So I have a clean glass jar. What I'm gonna do is take handfuls of the cabbage and put it in. And as I'm going, I'm gonna press it down with my hands as much as I can. Now the reason we do this is, if you can see, every time I press the cabbage, the liquid from the cabbage comes to the top. And that's what we want to do. We want to get all the cabbage pieces underneath the liquid, because that liquid is a salt brine, salty water, and that's what's going to ferment the cabbage as well as prevent any harmful bacteria from growing. At the very beginning, we had several leaves of cabbage that was on the top that we had kept to the side. I'm going to take some of these big leaves and I'm going to push them on top of the cabbage. And what this is going to do is going to help us push that down to all of the cabbage pressed down below the surface of the liquid. And I'm also going to take a clean paper towel and just wipe down everything. Just make sure there's no stray pieces of cabbage sitting at the top. Just going to clean all the sides and push the cabbage down underneath the big leaves. And as a final step, I have a Ziploc bag with some water. This is plain water in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of salt in this water, and this bag is going to serve as a weight on top of these leaves, and that will further ensure that the cabbage stays below the liquid level. I'm just going to put that in there, mix that salt up a little bit. And the reason I'm putting the salt in there is for some strange chance there's a hole in this bag or something happens where the bag starts leaking and the water gets into the sauerkraut or the cabbage. I don't want that plain water with any kind of impurities it may have to affect the quality of the sauerkraut. If it's a salty brine, then it's not going to hurt it. So that's the reason for that. Go ahead and put that in here. Now you can see the weight of the water is actually keeping the cabbage leaves in place, and all of the cabbage is definitely below the liquid line. Here's our lid. This is just a regular jar with a regular lid, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on here, but I'm not going to close it shut very tightly. It's just very loosely put on there. And the reason we do that is because the action of fermentation actually releases a lot of air, a lot of carbon dioxide, and if you shut it really tight without any kind of spout or anything like that for the air to escape, it's going to explode on you. So you don't want to do that. So if you keep it loosely fitted like this, the air can escape without the dust or bugs or anything else getting inside your sauerkraut. So we're going to keep this on the counter, kind of just somewhere away from everything else, and leave it there. Now it takes approximately 2 weeks to get really like nice sauerkraut, but again, that's going to depend on how you like your sauerkraut. Some people don't like that very, very pungent taste, so you can ferment this for 3 to 4 days, you can ferment it for a week, or you can even go past the 2 weeks depending on how sour you want the flavor of your sauerkraut. Every day you can just open it up and air it out, and that way the gases get released and you don't have a little time bomb on your hands. So I'm going to put this aside and we're going to look at it after a week and see how the progress is. So I'll see you back in a little bit. The final thing you might want to do is put a label with a date on your bottles, just so you remember when it was that you actually started this whole process. So it's a Tuesday for me, so I know that next Tuesday is when I'm going to check on it. So it is Tuesday, the following Tuesday, and it's been exactly 1 week since our sauerkraut has been fermenting. If you notice, the color has changed from that bright green to almost a yellowish color, and this is perfect. This is what fermented cabbage should look like. So let's open it up and see what's going on here. It smells so good. It's kind of like tangy, and I can smell the garlic in there, but it smells really, really good. So here is our bag of salted water, which is gonna come out first. And I don't think it leaked, which is a good sign. Keep that to the side. And next, we're gonna pull off these leaves of cabbage that we used to push this down. And there's no fungus on here. And if you smell, it has a nice crisp aroma to it and not kind of a funky bacteria odor. So if it had gone bad, you would really smell like a foul odor, but this is nothing like that. It smells fresh and yummy. You can try a little bit and see if this is the flavor that you like. Try this. You know, it's got a nice sour flavor to it, and I think I like it this sour. If I wanted to keep it going for another week, I could do that. Again, put back the leaves, press it down with the water weight, and just close it up and follow the same process and stop at any point that's right for you. But I think I like this. This is yummy. This is good enough for me. And if you look, this is even more than the other bottle that I showed you that I bought from the store. So we got all of this sauerkraut for literally like under $2 and a week of just waiting. So how great is that? So once you try this and you decide that yes, sauerkraut is for you, one of the things you can do is, this is quite a bit of sauerkraut, and depending on how many family members you have and how much you eat per day, just figure out how long it's going to take you to consume this much. And when you get to maybe halfway down the bottle, start a new batch. That way you will always have sauerkraut. By the time you finish the rest of this bottle, the other one will be ready to go, and it'll just be like a rolling process. Similar to people who make yogurt at home. You just kind of have a rolling process, and you will have sauerkraut at any given time. So if you like videos like this, please be sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon so you will be the first person to know every time we post a new recipe. And if you like this, please give it a big thumbs up, like it, share it with anybody that may find this useful, and join us again on another episode of ShowMeTheCurry.com, adding a pinch of spice to your life.